Welcome to the Haven Collective. I'm JR, and this is the Beacon Bit. Today we're reflecting on the story of the prodigal son that you can find in Luke chapter 15, and we're specifically focusing on verses 22 through 24. We're going to take a detour through Nehemiah chapter 8 as well, so buckle up, buttercups. We are not, by default, a feasting culture. We're a snacking culture. We grab pleasure in small, efficient, guiltless doses. We scroll, we stream, we eat at our desks. We've gotten very good at consuming things without actually tasting them. And when something genuinely good happens, we tend to acknowledge it briefly and then move on because, there's always more to do. So in Luke 15, a father throws a party that makes no sense. His younger son has taken his inheritance, he's squandered it completely, and is now crawling home to ask for a job as a hired hand. The father, who's presumably spent months or years scanning the horizon for this kid, sees him while he was still a long way off, and he runs, which is undignified, which is the point. And before the son gets a word out, the robe is on his shoulders, the ring is on his fingers, the fatted calf is already dead. The party has started. The math doesn't make sense, and the father doesn't care. The older brother is furious. He's been here the whole time, doing the right thing, and no one ever threw him a party. Honestly, I find his objection entirely reasonable, particularly as an older brother. It's also the voice in most of our heads. We don't think we deserve the feast, or we think they don't deserve the feast, or we think the moment doesn't warrant that kind of extravagance, so we keep the fatted calf alive for a more appropriate occasion that somehow never quite arrives. But feasting as a spiritual practice isn't about deserving. It's about a declaration that something is true, that God's provision is real, that the gift is actually good, that restoration is actually possible. In Nehemiah 8, I find the way it puts it very stark. The people are weeping, convicted, appropriately mournful and repentant. And God says, stop. Eat, drink, share with those who have nothing. Because the feast isn't a reward for getting it right. The feast is an act of defiant trust that joy is the appropriate, holy response to being alive. See, without feasting, fasting becomes this grim punishment that we've always been afraid it is, right? Without celebration, spiritual life collapses into duty. We do these things because we must, because God commands them, not because the whole point of all of this is flourishing and joy. Our road trip becomes a death march, right? We all have seen this. You can be theologically correct and existentially joyless, and that is, according to the scriptures, its own kind of poverty. See, the father's party wasn't logistically efficient. It was emotionally and spiritually necessary. It said something out loud that both of his sons needed to hear in their bones. So every time you set an extravagant table for a birthday, for a return, for a Tuesday, for no reason except that it's good to be alive, you're making a theological statement. You're saying, I believe what the Father believes. I believe what God believes. I believe the gift is real. I believe the dead can come alive. The best meal of the trip isn't the most expensive one. It's the one where you stopped, sat down, and allowed yourself to be fed. So, this week's practice. Plan a feast. Doesn't have to be big, it just has to be intentional. Choose something worth celebrating. And here's a hint, if you're breathing and people you love are nearby, that qualifies. Make more food than you need. Invite people, light candles, go a little overboard, right? And when someone asks why, tell them, I'm practicing believing that this is all a gift. Because it is. I look forward to hearing how the feasts go and our beacons this week. Until then, grace and peace go with you.